I'd like to call to order the November 18th meeting of the Tredyffrin Board of Supervisors. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chief Beatty, I think our first order of business is swearing in a new police officer.
I appreciate the board and the public's time. At this time, I'd like to, we're going to be doing a swearing in of one of our newest police officers. But I'd like to, before I did that, I need to thank the board and the township administration. This year, we did some changes with our police testing. Times aren't what they used to be for recruiting police officers, and especially the caliber that we'd like to have in Tredyffrin Township. With the board's backing, township staff, and the department, we were able to get 99 applicants put in for this testing process. We had about 75 come to our physical agility, and we interviewed another 40. Tonight, we're swearing in our first officer who's replacing Officer Rhonda Carroll, who is actually in the building. And we'd like to thank her for her years of service. There's Rhonda back there. So I say replace, but she's irreplaceable. So, but at this time, if we have Kara Cortese come up with her family, and we have Judge Holt is here to do the official swearing in. Kara comes to us, and with Kara tonight is her dad Bruce and mother Dana and Lafferty, and then holding the Bible for her is her stepbrother Michael Lafferty. Michael is actually a Pomerian police detective, so Kara has a lot of law enforcement in her history. If you do the swearing in, I'll talk a little bit afterwards.
Raise your right hand. I, Kara Cortese, being duly appointed,
a member of Tredyffrin Township Police Department,
Do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the laws and ordinances of Tredyffrin Township,
and the laws and ordinances of Tredyffrin Township,
that I will at all times maintain
that I will at all times maintain
true faith and allegiance to the same,
true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will obey the lawful orders
that I will obey the lawful orders
of duly appointed officers,
senior to me,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of police officer of Tredyffrin Township
of police officer of Tredyffrin Township
with loyalty and fidelity.
with loyalty and fidelity.
I also solemnly swear
I also solemnly swear
that I will uphold, obey, and enforce
that I will uphold, obey, and enforce
the law without consideration
the law without consideration
to a person's race, color, gender,
to a person's race, color, gender,
religious creed, sexual orientation, age, national origin, ancestry, handicap or disability,
and that I will discharge that duty
with loyalty and fidelity.
with loyalty and fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Just a little bit about Officer Cortese. Kara's a resident of Westchester in Chester County. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Westchester University in 2021, and she was certified from the Delaware County Municipal Police Academy in June of 22. She's interned with the West Goshen Police Department, which Chief Carroll and Deputy Chief is with us. today. And she's also worked previously in Upper Euclid and West Brandywine Township in Chester County. We're ecstatic to have her join our family, and you can see by the crowd here, she brings her own family along with her where she goes. But we're very excited, and congratulations, honored. One last comment, I'm sorry, I forgot. Chief Tom Jones is the chief for Upper Euclid, and he wanted to pass on. He wanted to be here for Kara. He really enjoyed having her at his department, gave her great accolades, but he was confident in her joining our ranks, and wished her the best.
No, thank you. We're excited to have you. And I've heard great things about you, by the way, also, so thank you.
You folks are excused if you want to.
Yeah, well, yeah. Welcome to stay, but yeah. Now we have some special acknowledgements. And the first thing is we want to make a proclamation for some students who achieved something pretty extraordinary. So there's a proclamation, it's a Guinness World Record. Whereas the students from Conestoga High School and Valley Forge Middle School, Tredyffrin Easttown School District, Chester County, Pennsylvania, gathered on the 18th of August, 2024, and whereas the purpose of this gathering was to attempt to break the Guinness World Record for the greatest height to drop a protected egg without breaking, and whereas high school student Matthew Ma, Charlie Gautrop, Jeffrey Wang, and middle school student Brecken Schefflerwood participated in this event, and whereas the students designed a device to protect the egg, which was dropped by high school teacher Derek Wood from a height of 83 feet, and whereas the students did break the previous Guinness World Record of a height of 54 feet, so I guess the egg survived. Now, if you guys could each come forward when we call your name, and then we have a proclamation for you, we'll take a picture and all that. You guys ready? So proclaimed, we, the Tredyffrin Township Board of Supervisors, by virtue of the authority vested therein, do hereby acknowledge Matthew Ma, Charlie Gautrop, Jeffrey Wang, Brecken Schefflerwood, and Derek Wood for their achievement, adopted the 18th day of November 2024. Congratulations, you guys. Carlotta, good idea, thank you. Turn it over to Murph. I think he has an announcement also. Microphone.
I'm pleased to have the opportunity to thank and honor Tori Snyder for her many years of volunteer service to Tredyffrin Township. Tori joined the Planning Commission in 2002 and has given 22 years of outstanding dedicated service to our township and its residents. She led the Planning Commission as chair and vice chair at various times during her tenure. Tori was a source of thoughtful guidance and insight on the many projects, often complex and challenging, that came before the Planning Commission during her 22 years of service. Tori was also a member of the 2009 Comprehensive Plan Task Force and the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Task Force. In addition, she participated in various township land planning related committees and initiatives over those many years. Tori Snyder, this board thanks you for your commitment to Tredyffrin Township and its residents over your many years of dedicated service. On a personal note, I will miss our discussions and working with you over those years. We have a little presentation here for you, and I will come down with it.
Yeah, thank you, Tori, for all the service. It's really been extraordinary. I want to call to order the public hearing for the 2025 preliminary budget. It's a public hearing to consider and possibly adopt the 2025 preliminary budget. Mr. McKenna and then Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I have marked the following exhibits for the hearing this evening. Board Exhibit 1 is the proof of publication from the Daily Local News of the notice of the hearing dated November 3rd, 2024. Board Exhibit 2 is the proof of publication of the notice of the hearing from the Mainline Times Suburban dated November 3rd, 2024. Board Exhibit 3 is a copy of the email and distribution list to those receiving public hearing notifications, which was sent on October 29th, 2024. Board Exhibit 4 is a copy of the 2025 preliminary budget presentation that was made to the board. And Board Exhibit 5 is a copy of the actual 2025 preliminary budget, which is up for consideration this evening. Those are the board exhibits for the hearing.
We hear a motion to adopt the 2025 preliminary budget.
So moved.
We hear a second.
Second.
Mr. Duraco.
I'm happy to answer or go over any questions that the board might have. Again, just as a reminder, we're proposing, this preliminary budget proposes a 6.3% tax increase for the general fund and about a 28% tax increase for the emergency services fund, no tax increase for stormwater fund, and no change in the sewer rate. I've been working on the final budget, so I'm anticipating that general fund number is going to come down. But we'll get into that probably in our next meeting when I actually go over all the changes. Like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have.
And that's okay. We've had a lot of discussion. Just for note, we've had we have to adopt the preliminary budget. We've also had extensive conversations on how to bring down the increased number on the general fund. So we expect that to come down for the next round when you see it and see it get posted. Any comments or questions from the board, from the public?
Now? Okay. My name is Barbara Ellis. I'm a Tredyffrin Township resident. Ellis, E-L-L-I-S. This budget just came to my attention, so I haven't had a lot of time to review, but I did look at the slide presentation. I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. From 2023 to 2024, my Tredyffrin Township taxes went up 50%. And based on what was in the budget for 2025, my taxes are going to increase over 100% from 2023. I'm newly retired. I don't live in a mansion. You have a lot of residents in this area that don't have a lot of money. A lot of them are unemployed. There are several neighbors on my block that are unemployed, that are facing a lot of financial issues. We have very high inflation. People that are working, their salaries are not getting bumped up, they're not getting big raises, they're not getting big bonuses. People are suffering. We have young families that have young children, they're in daycare, those expenses are going up. So every time you hike up our township taxes, it hurts some of your residents, maybe not all, but people like me, working class people, and you do have a lot of lower working class people in this area that are suffering. You have higher income people now that have lost an income because companies are laying off people in their 40s, 50s, some in the 60s. So people are suffering at a time like this. For you to hike up our township taxes this much is shameful, and I think is worthy of more exploration, more education of the public, because not that many people are here. I don't think a lot of people are aware, and it's not until they get the tax bill that all of a sudden they're in shock. And this has got to stop. It's a lot of spending. You have these different funds. From the materials that I did look, it was very confusing. I'm not a financial person, so it took me some time, and I only had like 24 hours. And you got to do better than this. You really have to do better than this. You have you got a lot of tax money coming into this area. Now is not the time to be hiking it up this much. So I'd like to hear some comment about that, and whether there's more time for the public to get informed, maybe for you to invite the public in. I know you have these meetings, but I think an invitation, some notification to the public of what they can expect. You know, I don't want to have to think about moving, but with Chester County taxes going up, a lot of taxes going up, I don't know if I can do it, and I know, as I said, my neighbors don't know if they can do it, and I'd like to hear what you guys have to say, because I'm pretty much in shock. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Michael Heberg, Heaberg, and I'm from Berwyn. First, I'd like to say I'd like to add my words of appreciation to those of Murph for Tori Snyder, who's probably as great a volunteer as this township has had in the last 25 years in terms of the amount of time she's put in. It's unbelievable how much work she's done and how well she's done it. So I'd just like to add that to the nice comments about Tori. A couple things that I would like to ask questions about related to this year's budget, and I thought that the comments by the previous speaker were interesting and I think reflect the sentiments of a lot of people who live in this community. I'll start with a couple questions about the specifically the police budget. First of all, there was later in the agenda tonight, there is a proposal to purchase an additional police vehicle, which would be for $40,000, $10,000 less than had been expected. So my suggestion would be that $10,000 savings should reduce the capital plan for police vehicles by $10,000, right? Wouldn't that make sense? So the total amount is $270, and so the memo that I read says $270 becomes $230. I would say $270 included a $50,000 vehicle. If it's a $40,000 vehicle, the $270 should become $220,000. The other question I have about the vehicles, the other question I have about the vehicles is last year there was a $75,000 EV in the police budget. I'm wondering, first of all, what kind of feedback we've gotten as to the value of having an electric vehicle in the police fleet. But secondly, that vehicle, which was budgeted 75, only cost 60. You know, EV prices are coming down. So I would suggest we revisit the 75 that's in the budget. And is 75 the number for 2025 to buy an EV, or is 60 the number? Because again, in 2024, our EV costs 60. If we're buying the same vehicle, maybe it's 60 again. So there's a quick $25,000 savings. I had not attended the meeting where the decision was made to increase the level of police staffing, which was back in June. And I guess my first question is that there were a number of residents who had questions, and actually Dr. Gussie did as well, about trying to have a presentation, which was, the question was, when did that happen? I didn't see it, so maybe somebody can direct me to when that
We did that probably a month ago.
About a month ago? Okay.
Yeah, about a month ago we did that, yeah.
Okay. So, I guess there was some discussion that night in June about police staffing. And I served on the board in 2013 when we did a study of the staffing levels, what would be the appropriate amount. We've continued over many years since 2009 to sort of anchor to this idea that we had 50 officers at one time, as if that was necessarily the right number of officers that we needed. And so, I guess I was just, it seems to me that the decision to increase the level of staffing, as some members of the board had mentioned, as some members of the public had mentioned, it might have been a good idea to marry that with the budget discussion, as compared to making the decision to increase staffing in June and then already building in a 6% tax increase, which Mr. Miller mentioned at that time, that increasing the staff by 3 was going to raise taxes by 6.5 to 7.5%. So it seems to me that we were sort of handcuffed in terms of it wasn't part of the budget discussion. Rather, it was part of a commitment made for the 2025 budget in June of 2024. And I guess my question is, where are we as far as the staffing goes now? Are we staffed? Do we have more than 42 officers? And when do we get to 45 officers? Are we budgeting as if we're going to have 45 officers on January 1st? Is that the idea? Maybe somebody can answer that question.
Yeah, so we have, of the 3 new officers, 1 officer will be graduating from the academy in December. And then 2 will be going to the academy starting in January, but as part of the CBA, they receive a salary of $50,000 a year. So the way it's budgeted is $50,000 for the first 6 months, and then they jump up to $70,000 for the last 6 months. So the budget for each of those will be $60,000.
Okay, so we'll be at 45 effective on January 1st. That's the assumption.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just to address the first question, in terms of the number of police officers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Chief Beatty has been asking us for many years for additional officers with, I think, very good reasons. We have held him off for a while. I think at this point in time, given also the number of officers that are going to be retiring and the difficulty we've had in recruiting, we made the decision as a board to start the process of adding officers earlier in the year so we would be staffed up for 2025. We think it was an important investment in public safety. That's how we got to there.
That's reasonable, but as you made the point, and several members of the board made the point that anyone who's running a department in any business or organization always needs more resources, right? So it's like, Darren would probably say, well, I could use 5 more people, and
The study you mentioned said there should be at least 45 officers. The study you mentioned, the 2013 study, said there should be at least 45 officers.
I understand, but I'm also...
And then it said it should look into additional more than that. And that was one of the things that we looked upon.
Right, but we collected data we took data for over an entire year of every call for service, right? And so we looked at really sort of the workload. How many, are we overwhelmed? Is it affecting response time? I mean, it was hard data on when the call was received. I mean, it was all that, right? We spent about $40,000 to have a comprehensive study, knowing that we were going to spend $40 million in staffing at that time over the next 5 years, right? So we looked at it. And what we found was that, I mean, I think everybody here knows that at the time, or any police chief is going to say, I need 48. And we were saying, well, I mean, kind of prove it to it. They're like, show us the numbers, show us what justifies that. And of course, and you all have seen this, let's be realistic. A lot of times the consultants in these situations come out of the exact same organizations, right? And so in the same way that the fire study, the gentleman who did the fire study said, you could use you could use 60 paid staff or whatever, right? So they come out of a world where they're going to argue for more staff than may or may not be reasonable. So that was what happened, and I guess part of the thing that concerns me is that the bottom line is, what kind of improvement in service do we expect? For anything, we're going to spend another $600,000 or $700,000 a year on sort of hard costs. But how are we going to measure? And this goes for anything. We're going to spend more money. How are we going to measure whether we're getting any return on what the taxpayers are paying? So if the taxpayers are going to pay another $600,000, if they're going to get a 7% tax increase, what do we expect to be the return? Is it going to be better response time? Is it going to be, what's it going to be? Because if we're going to spend $1 worth of tax money, we should get more than $1 worth of value back. That's my opinion. And if you look at the overall cost of the police department, and I've heard, I know that you could say, well, each officer is $140,000, right? That number's, if you take the budget, the way that I would do it is, you take the budget and you divide it by the number of officers, right? The budget's $13.5 million. There's 45 officers, so it's $300,000 to pay for the officer, to pay their benefits, to pay for their training, to pay for their gun, to have a car available to them, to support them with administrative support. It's $300,000 per officer. So the idea that the additional officers are going to, have a first-year cost of, some number of $150,000 is about half of the price, right? So, you're staffing to a level it's a lot of money, and consequently, how are we going to measure if we're getting a good return on this, or are we just sort of saying, well, we're being asked for 45 officers, so we're being offered for 47, so we should go to 45. So that's my. It's just a question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Chief Beatty, you want to speak to this for a second?
Yes, we've done the analysis. We've run our times. We look at this, the crimes committed are down across the region, across the area. Some of the things we addressed in the staff study we did was the type of calls that we're going to that are now more involved, prolonged, family matters, mental health issues that we're still primary on. Even though there are other agencies that are getting involved, they're not responders yet ready to come out and take the initial calls that rise to a dangerous level. They have the mental health practitioners are starting to come on board in Chester County, but it's not up and running. Geographically in this town, it's 20 square miles. Right. The response times to the different regions is impacted by the amount of growth and traffic in this community and the amount of types of calls we can respond to as emergency calls. Sometimes it could take a little longer than you would want. So you try and deploy your resources, and we do basically try and be thoughtful. We do data analysis, where we're deploying the officers, when they're around the areas that things happen, and try and be cognizant of that. Our response to calls is in progress. Our times are down, and we're actually making good apprehensions and arrest. But the other part of that side is once you make an apprehension and arrest, you're now committed to a longer process, putting all the paperwork, everything, arrest information together to process those individuals. And on top of that, most calls for service are requiring at least 2 to 3 officers per call for a violent call or a serious crash. When we're working with 4 or 5 officers on a street at a time, you've now depleted the resources in the township down to maybe handling at best one other incident without having to start getting mutual aid in, which we do have good mutual aid partners. But on certain volumes, certain days, we're running light. There's days when you come in here, sir, sometimes the lot is empty of all those police cars. Sometimes it has a lot of cars on the side. But there are certain days and events that we have, major protests at Vanguard, big community events. When we have to really ramp up to be able to handle what this community is. We are one of the biggest municipalities in Chester County. We border Radnor Township, Upper Merion Township, 2 of the bigger municipalities in each of the respective counties. We all work together, but we also have to have the proper resource. I can't have all the assets on one end of town and leave the other end of town exposed. So right now, we're looking to deploy a little more resources. One of the things we're doing with the study we did was to realize overnight, I don't need to have that extra officer. With our deployment, we're going to put more officers daytime and into the middle shift, into the evening, until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, to have those resources to be able to respond quickly in a more timely fashion for the community. One of the things we did do is we actually pulled another officer out of community policing years ago when I got here to put boots on the ground and officers on the street. So we did that aspect of it on that to try and address things in that way. If I could jump back into one of the other questions you had with regards to the vehicle, if I could jump back to that one.
Sure.
The vehicle, the electric vehicle, we were asked to try and look at it. It's working out very well. It's a Ford Lightning. It's used for the traffic safety sergeant has been using it. The scales are in it. They do the motor vehicle enforcement. The serious crash equipment can be transported in it, and it's doing a good job in that capacity. It does enforcement in our community on the roads and highways, and it's doing good. Part of the cost was the upfit cost. Because it was a newer vehicle, it was getting the equipment that didn't come from other vehicles that really couldn't be reused, and that was part of the upfit. Therein also lies with this other vehicle that, we got notified of potential savings by a vehicle that was held for us, but we didn't order per se, but we realized we had a chance to realize savings. And it really isn't a one-to-one, apple-to-apple discount. The $9,000 savings, it's still going to take the proper equipment to upgrade. Some we have and we can reuse. Some of the things we have on other vehicles already. So that's how that number plays out on the extra vehicle upfit. So it wasn't a full, the finance director looked at it, was able to shave off what he could of what we thought the vehicles that we would probably get. And once again, we're just doing probably. I haven't been before the board it hasn't gone past the full budget, but it hasn't gone past the board to get to the next level. We just had an opportunity in this, which I was going to talk about later on, to realize a potential savings in the next year that would save us approximately $9,000, and we wanted to jump on it.
That makes sense.
Did I miss one of the other ones? Question?
No, I think you got them. Thank you. I appreciate the additional detail, and I think I've never heard anybody come to this microphone and say the police service is lacking, and so that's part of the puzzlement is, like everyone who comes up here, and my experience personally, and neighbors and so forth, is what a great job you guys do. And so nobody is saying, well, gee, they're really not, they can't respond, so they must need more resources or whatever. So this comes from a place of a high degree of satisfaction with the services being delivered, while at the same time we're adding a lot of money to the budget, and so residents may be sitting there saying, well, I think the service is fine. Why are we spending another X amount of money? And that's part of, that's where the questions come from. So,
I think one of the things we're trying to do is not have people come complain about the level of service that we're getting from the police. I mean, I think, let me just reflect back what I just heard from you. If we were to wait until we're not responding, that's not what we expect from Tredyffrin Township, right?
I understand that to some degree, but if the service is A+, it's like, I'm not saying we should reduce the cost. I mean, when we had 42 officers, we were getting A+ grades, right? And so it's like, okay, well, let's just think about this, because, at the same time, as this lady pointed out, I mean, the tax increases have been substantial. And so I'm just raising the question, okay? So, you know, there's a difference of opinion or difference of point of view or whatever. I'm just raising the question. And others raised the same questions. At the meeting, it was described that the Finance Committee had made a recommendation that you go from 42 to 44, and then you got to the meeting and you went to 45. So, you know, whatever, I had not had the opportunity to ask any questions about this, and that's why I'm
Could I jump in here real quick? I'm going to go back real quick, Mike, because I was there. And I remember the study that you guys did before I got on the board. I got on the board in 2014, I believe. And that study had all kinds of crazy stuff. 50, at one point there were 50 officers here, and at another point 47. That's what they recommended. We didn't, but the 50 was years ago or something.
Yes.
Huh? It was crazy.
It was before the Great Recession.
It was crazy. So that came up with, and Matt said 45, I don't know, I remember it came up with 47. That too was a little crazy. So what we were trying to do was, and it was Mark and me, there were 39 officers. I think one was on long-term disability, and we wanted to move it to 42, and we moved it to 42. I forget whether it was 14 or 15. So here we are 9 years later, a more built-out township. I'm saying, so when you say it's A+, that may be very well. We're trying to maintain A+, if that's what it is. I don't know, but that doesn't account for the traffic accident that we have that requires maybe 2 or 3 officers, which doesn't permit us to cover the domestic dispute that may require 2 other officers, but we're not available or staffed up to do that in the right way. That's all we're trying to do here. That's basically all we're trying to do, is to protect the people. And sadly, unfortunately, and that's over for 9 years, for about 9 years, maybe 10 years, we did nothing. We didn't increase. Chief came to us, rightfully so, and asked for 2 more folks, 2 more officers for traffic. We said no. We were going to give them 1. And then, that was a couple years ago, and then we said no again. We gave them none. So, I mean, there are things that go on. Why was that? That was a function of where we were in the budget at that time. We are where we are today. We're trying to maintain our top-notch service. We're trying to fill the holes where they appear, as the chief just described. We understand. I understand what you're saying. We wish there was an easier way to do it, especially in public safety. So, you know, that's why we did what we did.
I just
So
want
actually, I had a quick, I'm sorry.
I just want to say something real quick. I've been trying. I just wanted to say, I looked up, it's October 7th. If you do want to go back and watch.
Thank you.
Watch the update, or if someone else in the public
Thank
wants
you,
to.
Dr. Garcia.
The
Appreciate that.
presentation.
Just to avoid going around in circles, you know, you had asked the question about the additional officers, and Chief answered. So I was just wondering whether you had a further question or whether Chief's answer was satisfactory for the question you were asking.
It's satisfactory. I mean, it is what it is. For the record, Murph, you know, when we went to 42 officers, we had to have 4 votes or more, right? It wasn't just you, and I think it was actually a unanimous decision at that time.
No, we had 7 votes. It was public safety. It was 7-0.
Right. I mean, so in 2014, 2015, we made the decision to go to 42, and it held that way for a long time. And so it's all, you know, that's where we are now. I guess another question I have, or an observation. Sure.
Can I just close out on the one comment I remembered you asked? I was trying to articulate just the phased-in approach at what we're doing. So it is an impact. It is 45, but with the officer tonight is replacing the officer that just retired and left last month. We have 2 officers that'll be retiring in January, and they're out the door, senior officers. So they'll be going out, getting their compensation, their package is a little bit of a higher package. We have 2 young officers that we found identified. We made the officers, they're going to be starting the end of December. So there's a little bit of an overlap for a short amount of time. But the 2 that are coming in, yeah, they're right away. They're going to go into the training program, FTO program, which our FTO program is 3 months. So 3 months of ride along. Even the officer, Cara Cortese, she was a police officer in a neighboring town.
Mhm.
She's going to be 3 months with somebody else here for the training. The cadets that will go into the academy in January, we sort of do a full background hiring package on them, and to get them in, they start in January. They don't come out of the academy until June. It takes another 3 months with an FTO. So once they graduate, they'll go to the base police. They're at $50,000 is a cadet salary.
Mhm.
And then they'll go to officer salary once upon graduation, the regular police entry level, then do the 3 months with the internship, and then it'll phase in. So you're really looking into like June, July, until the salaries start to hit at that point.
So just so I'm clear, so the 3, the one that started tonight, the ones that started in December are replacing retiring officers. So we'll be at 42.
Right.
And then you add 3 cadets, which gets you to 45.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess I guess my next question, and I raised this point in previous years. So far, it hasn't gotten any traction, but this might be the first time it does. One of the things that the township has always done, to my knowledge, is they've always budgeted as if every position is full for the entire year. And they've set the tax rate accordingly, right? So you set the tax rate based on balancing the budget and assuming that every position is full for the entire year. They've never made any assumption of openings during the course of the year. In 2024, according to the forecast, there was you're going to come in $1 million under on spending for salaries and personnel for that reason, basically. So the budget was $17.3 million, and you're going to spend $16.3 million in salary and benefits. Over the last, this has happened every single year that I'm aware of, and I've looked at budgets back 15 years. Every year, it has ranged between $300,000 and over $1 million. And what I would suggest you do is consider the idea of including some assumption for open positions through the course of the year in order to reduce the amount of money that you have to raise people's taxes. Because if you said, you know what, we're going to assume that we're going to, the 2025 budget for salaries and benefits is $18.2 or $3 million. So we're going to assume 3% over the course of a year, 3% of the positions are going to be open. So we're going to save us $500,000, which probably reduces your tax increase in the general fund from 6.3% to 1%. So it's a suggestion. It's a way you could help the taxpayers by just making a realistic assumption of what I've heard people describe it as breakage, that every position is not going to be full. I can guarantee you, like every other single year in Township's history, every position was not full for the entire year, and we're going to make an assumption this year and going forward that that's not going to be the case. And therefore, there would be a one-time benefit to it, which would mean that you wouldn't have to raise taxes as much.
Well, what we do is we assume we're going to use general fund reserves to plug the deficit we have in the budget, and then most years don't use it because of that exact breakage. So that's the similar thing, with the same effect.
But what we're doing is we're taxing people and just putting their money, we're just raising taxes more than they have to. Because remember, the 15 or 17 or whatever money that's in general fund reserves, and I know that Mr. Holt has made this observation, and it's true, is we've been planning to use reserves for the last 10 years, and we haven't hardly used any of them. And that's taxpayer money. The people in this room who pay taxes, part of that's their money that's sitting in the savings account. So we really, at some point, you just say, look, we're going to try to be as realistic as possible. To the extent we use reserves, we use reserves. But it's an option. I mean, again, there's really no reason that some assumption, because, look, We didn't do it when I was here because we weren't raising taxes very much. So, but the point is, at some point, you look at so in 2 years, the real estate taxes, the property tax on a Tredyffrin resident is up 58% in 2 years, 24 and 25. The COLA is up 6%. So, cumulatively, 47 and 8, and we'll assume that 8's the number. So 57, 58% is the increase over the last 2 years. The COLA over that time is 6%. There are, well, hold on, just let me finish my point if you don't mind. In what way? Right? So, and that's, you can certainly say that to the residents, but if I'm the lady who was at the microphone, if you can get the income breakdown for people in this community, there are literally thousands of families that make less than $50,000 a year that live in this community, okay? And for them, an increase in their taxes, their property tax and Tredyffrin of 58% is, it's hard for them to justify. It's hard for them to see it. It's hard for them to reach into their pocket for an extra $300 or $400. And if they're on Social Security, their COLA is up less than 6%. So the person who is getting $2,000 a month is getting another 6%, even as their property taxes are going up 58%. And that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of good reasons why taxes are higher. I'm not suggesting there aren't. But where there is an opportunity to relieve the pain on people, I think that opportunity should be taken.
I just want to say that, ma'am, there is a budget open house this coming Thursday at 10 o'clock where the supervisors meet with residents and staff. So you have an opportunity to bring any other additional questions that you may have. As you can tell by the conversation that's going on tonight, most of the increase that's being driven here is through public safety, police department, fire, stormwater tax as well as goes to resident safety, and frankly, inflation has played a role in our expenses as well. We have few revenue streams that come into Tredyffrin, and the major one is transfer tax and real estate tax. We don't have an earned income tax. So that's why we have to raise taxes every single year to increase the millage, because we don't have a tax out there that will just go along with increases in income together with inflation. So I encourage you to come to the meeting on Thursday, and we can continue this discussion. Of course, invite you at 10 o'clock, and I think that'd be great.
Where's that?
Right here in the Township building.
Can I just ask a question? Because this has really got me going round and round. If I'm understanding you right, you're saying, okay, don't raise the taxes because, yes, I'm a taxpayer also. I don't want my taxes going up. I really don't. No, I don't know anybody who wants their taxes going up. And you're saying go in and use the reserve. So let's just say this year and next year, yeah, we go in and we use the reserve and we don't raise the taxes. And something happens and then we have to jump the taxes. How do you want me to justify? I understand there are a lot of people hurting. Don't get me wrong, okay? But if we constantly go in and we're using the reserve, we use it this year, we use it next year, might even use it for 3 years, and that reserve drops, then where are we supposed to make it up at? Because we still have to do the stormwater. That's very important, all right? That is definite. As far as like what Matt said, we only get income from 2 places. It's not like we have the earned income tax. So if we're taking a reserve, if we're using that reserve for a couple of years, what happens when that reserve gets really low? Then what do you want to do? Because at that point, we would have to go raise taxes. Or are you saying just use the reserve all the way down and let the chips fall where they may? Forget the rainy day fund, and we're just going to use it to keep everybody happy so that they don't have to, nobody's taxes have to go up. I understand what you're saying. Taxes, yeah, nobody wants to pay taxes. I don't think anybody in this room wants to pay taxes. But there are projects that we have to get done in safety. I'll be the first to tell you, I was the person who fought for the chief to get an extra person because I don't want to see him have to backfill 2 or 3 years from now when he can't get anyone, because it is hard to get a person to become a police officer. They're just not a dime a dozen anymore. A lot of people don't want that job. So how do you justify, and excuse me, you sat up here, so you know what we're going through. How are you seeing to balance that out?
What I'm suggesting is, you've got you have an abundance of reserves. This isn't like there's any, like there's a shortage of reserves, right? The township has 15, 17, whatever the number is, right? And what I'm suggesting is that is the taxpayers' money. And to use some of it, you're already going to use some of it, right? But you have the opportunity to offset or to make a realistic assumption of what your personnel costs are going to be, as opposed to an unrealistic assumption, which is that every position in the township is going to be filled for the next year. And if you make that, you could reduce.
Mike, we got it. Mike, I understand your point.
So
I understand that point. Thanks. Yeah, I
Right.
told you how we do it. What we do is we take Joe budgets full employment, we put in using reserves to balance the budget, and we most years don't use the reserves because we don't spend it. That's how, it's the same thing, right?
So the idea is that for forever, we're not going to use any reserves.
We are using reserves here and there for projects, for capital projects. You know that. We
Right.
just had an emergency bridge we had to build, right, to
Right.
fix, right? Come on.
But again, this is taxpayer money, and you're asking them for more. And they're saying, well, we got $15 million sitting in the bank. Why are you raising my taxes by 8% on top of 47% last year? That's the point.
And we
so
remembered we have $50 million
Can I just address
in,
one thing here for a second? I'm sorry, go ahead.
just to your point, we have capital needs and capital future expenses of tens and 20, 30 millions of dollars. One other way to look at having reserves is that that's just basically our capital reserve. That's how I look at it. So when you're talking about reserves, it's not just complete rainy day fund, although it is, but those are the monies that we use to spend on capital projects. And through your idea, which is an idea, and we can discuss it certainly, if we did that, there would be less money coming into what I consider is going to be our capital budget. We don't really have a capital stream anywhere in our budget. So that's just, those are funds that would eventually go into our reserves that we would use then for our capital projects, of which we have many, $50, $60 million of unfunded capital projects that we could be doing in Tredyffrin. So that's how I personally view it, Mike.
Can I just address one other point that everyone's bringing up? Because I know it's fun to talk about the percentages, that it's a big percentage. It is, the tax increase this year is $70, $70 for the entire year. That's the proposed increase, and we're trying to bring it down from there. Just so you understand, that's the actual dollars we're talking about. That's 3 police officers, that's 7 FTEs of emergency services, emergency services, firefighters. That's what you're getting for that very small increase. That's the total amount in dollars. So
on top of 300 last year, right?
last year, the general fund budget increase was 0. The general fund, that's the police, everything, your roads, can I finish? The roads, everything was 0. We added a stormwater tax, which was something that we have had many meetings, you've had them too, with residents complaining to us quite appropriately about the lack of stormwater control in the township. So we spent almost, 3 years on a stormwater task force, and then a whole series of hearings to come up with that number as what we needed to start collecting to start executing on this project. So we have probably 12, I don't know, Steve Burgo could talk to it. We have a huge number of projects that are started in the township, which will make the stormwater situation better. It's not going to make it perfect, we know that, but it will make it better. And then we added an emergency services fund, and we spent probably 1.5 years talking about the need for putting money into our fire companies because they are suffering with a decline in volunteers. So, and we put them in separate funds so you can see where the money's being spent. So we didn't have to listen, or didn't have to have it goes into a general fund and where is it being spent. So you can see, you're spending $153 on stormwater. I think it's a great investment per year, given what you're getting from projects. And you're spending $170 on emergency services. That's the That's the guys you call for 911, you want them to show up at your house. I mean, I think it's a great bargain for the residents.
I understand that, but
No, seriously,
Let me-
and
let
the
me just
percentages
make-
are fun, but
let me
it's
make a point.
$70.
Let me make a point about the idea that the general fund didn't go up. You're correct. It didn't go up, or it went up a very little bit in 2024 from 2023, okay? I don't have the number in front of me. But you shifted expenses that were in the general fund to I mean, I was up here last year and we discussed this. You moved expenses that were in the general fund into the sewer fund, or excuse me, the stormwater fund, in the stormwater fund. You moved expenses that were in emergency services into the emergency services tax. So, you lost a couple $1 million worth of expenses that used to run through the general fund that now ran through those two. So to suggest that the general fund taxes, and by the way, the overall went up a lot, and
Mike,
we both
okay,
agree
this
with
is,
that.
I don't understand what the point is here.
I was just responding to your assertion that, the taxes, that the
Those are the
general fund didn't
facts.
go, which is a fact.
Those are the facts.
That is a fact, but there's a little bit more beyond it.
We could spend time at the budget workshop going through line by line.
Excuse
if
me,
you want, right?
Okay, I think that revisiting last year's budget at this point is not going to help us because we passed last year's budget. We're towards the end of 2024. So can we focus on the 2025 budget? Otherwise, I can give you the same spiel I gave you last year about the 2024 budget if you're going to revisit the 2024 budget, because I actually ended up talking to a lot of residents in the process of re-election. But let's focus on 2025.
So I've provided my ideas, ways that you could, take it easier on the taxpayers. I think there's a lot of residents out there who may not have voiced their opinions. I think that regardless of what happens, you're going to, in my experience, you're not going to have 100 people show up at these meetings. So, but hopefully I'm a voice of some people that live out there that are, disappointed that, again, we're facing a large tax increase on top of an enormous one last year. So I've given you an idea or two on ways that you can save money, and I'll keep pouring over the pages and be back at future meetings probably, but I appreciate the time.
Thanks, we'll see you Thursday.
Are you coming to the meeting on Thursday, sir?
I don't believe I will. I work during, I can't, I don't think I can be here on Thursday.
I'm not letting you go before me next time. That's okay. When I first got here, I thought this was going to be an incredible municipal finance meeting, but we're still doing our best. My name is Max Young. I live on Hobbs Road. I've been a resident in the township for 2 years, so I have one big comment, one question, and one sort of red flag issue that I hope you'll take into consideration for approving the budget this year. Living here for 2 years, I'm very aware that that's a short period of time. All of my neighbors have been here for decades, and I totally get why. We love it here. We hope to be here for decades too. But for this budgeting exercise, it's really hard to get context, given the information you guys present. I hugely appreciate the finance department putting together, 200 pages of great material for us to have access to. But even for someone who considers himself fairly financially literate, to try to get your head around all of this in basically 6 weeks, to come here and present all of you an intelligent take on what's good, what's bad, what we're worried about, is really tough. All the discussions you've had so far, to my mind, a lot of that could have been put to bed by a better summary of where we stand today, right? The most valuable document I found trying to navigate everything was actually the 2023 audited financials, because there's context, not just a sea of numbers comparing 2025 to 2024, and by the way, all flow stats, no stocks. Finding the reserve funds, right? It's a totally different document that you then have to input yourself compared to the flow. So when people are asking understandable questions about what are our reserves, is it $7 million in the general fund? Is it $48 million total? Are those in money market funds? Is that an investment portfolio? We have no information about that. So of course people are going to come up here with very strong opinions and not necessarily a lot of information. So if I could just request that going forward, again, huge credit to the finance department. The information you guys have put in the hands of the citizens is remarkable, and you're doing a great job. It's still, I think we still need a little bit more to have a really good sense of where we're coming from. I'm nervous as someone who's been here for 2 years to stand up in front of you and try to share my ideas, because I know it's probably going to take me another 5 years of listening to really come to grips with where we stand. But it's tough. So when we're talking about, percentage increases in taxes, 28% for the Emergency Services Fund, 6% for the General Services Fund, some of these funds are new. We don't know where we're going, right? I have no way to understand what our expectation is for the operating budget, the capital budget. How do we use municipal bonds? What role the state plays in reimbursing capital expenses versus not. It's a lot of moving pieces. So for us to come here and try to have an intelligent take, which is what I think we want to offer you and not waste your time, some more work on that, just giving us context of where we've been historically, some general commentary on how you all view, here is why we raise general funds, right? We have no inflation indexed tax revenue vehicle. That makes sense, but for those of us who don't live with this stuff every day or every month, it takes a while for that to get through. So that's one comment that I had. My one question, I guess, was on the muni bond side. I see that we've issued a lot more in the past 5 years than we have historically. What role do municipal bonds play in the township's finances? Are they sort of a stopgap? Are they a plug? Are they for capital projects? How do we use those?
Yeah, so this last bond issuance, the 2024 bonds, had a major focus on stormwater-related projects, so that fund being brand new, not a lot of cash flow, there's no cash reserves prior to, probably the end of this year. And so we needed to fund initial capital outlays through bonds, so it's really a cash flow management. And then some of the other projects that we funded over the last 5 years, we're talking major capital that you wouldn't fund with cash because it's going to serve a benefit for more than 5 years. You're looking at, again, a 20-year bond. So that's why we fund projects like that.
Great, which makes sense, but I couldn't find that statement anywhere on the township website, or maybe it does exist, but again, trying to find it as a regular person, working, trying to spend time on this stuff when I can, I would love for that to be just a little bit easier, and just something that short would be great, and that takes care of, all my worries about capital budgeting and muni bonds and that sort of thing. So, I plan to stay engaged over the long term and hopefully come here with good questions, but for people who've only been here a couple years, trying to get involved in all the institutional knowledge that's floating around, it's not really maybe as clear as it could be. So to the extent that we could get a little bit more context, because, coming to a meeting on a Thursday.
What are you thinking, just for context, are you thinking like a narrative, just a little description of, okay.
Here's where we've been, here's why the stormwater fund came into existence.
Yeah, the budget, because Joe does a budget presentation.
I saw it, and it's good high level, but it's not, again, there's no reserves. I can see where the funds have been at different times, but why did the general fund, tax level go up in 2010, not 2011, et cetera, right? Just little things like that to understand our perspective on what's driving these increases.
So I would say most people are not as interested as you, so this is really great.
Yeah.
And I think you would really enjoy the budget workshop. And
I think a lot of people would, but unfortunately, a weekday during the day is essentially impossible.
Yeah, I would stay engaged because I'm sure we could use your knowledge.
So I guess I'll use that as a jumping off point. The one thing I saw in the budget that really freaked me out, and again, I don't have context, so if I'm wrong and this has already been discussed, I'm happy to sit down. The police pension, police, a big portion of the budget overall. Our police pension fund assumed rate of return is 7.25%. That's insane. That's 2% higher than it should be, probably. And a 1% decrease increases our liability by $7 million. So just to give you some numbers, I checked quickly. The best pension funds in the United States currently, the big state funds, right, that have access to the best money managers in the world. CalPERS, 6.8% assumed rate of return. New York State, 5.9%. Florida and Texas, both 7%. Wisconsin, 6.8%. These are the big guys who have access to the top tier funds that are going to have the best performance. For us to have 2.25%, or 7.25%, pardon me, is like absolutely bonkers. So the pension contribution number is just a fantasy. And I say this as someone who's, hopefully going to be here for decades. So if we shortchange it now, who gets to pay the piper when the bill comes due in 20 or 30 years? Probably me. I looked at, the real rate of return in our police pension fund for U.S. equities is 7.5%. So that's not almost 10% nominal. That's never happened in any economy in the history of the world ever. So again, just to compare, the current 10-year projected returns for some of the most sophisticated money managers in the world, we have almost 10%. Vanguard has 4%. Goldman Sachs has 3%. JP Morgan is 6.5%, right? Like, these numbers aren't even close. I used to work in this industry. If someone showed me these numbers, I would either laugh them out of the room or tell them they were being taken advantage of. So this is really disturbing. I was very happy to see the new officer being sworn in today. I presume one of the things that attracted her here is the compensation and the pension plan that we offer, probably on the assumption that it's fairly well funded. The audit says 89%, which looks great. You take 7.25% down to 6.25%, we're 40% funded, which is like Illinois. It's like about as bad as it gets. So the sooner you guys take action on this, great. $7 million is a big number, but in our total budget, that's not insurmountable. You wait 10 years, we start to have a really big problem that it becomes hard to catch up with. Pension math is a lot of fun. That's why there's so many people here to talk about it tonight. But this is absolutely wild. And for comparison, by the way, our non-uniformed employees who also have a pension plan run by the state, that has a 5.25% rate of return. So why we think as a small municipality with, from what I can tell, no access to sort of, private investments that you could argue would do better is really worrisome. So to the extent you can review that and start to increase the contributions now voluntarily, even before you start to review the policy number, the rate of return, and take that down, I think that would be fantastic. A lot of good things being paid for with the tax increases, but ignoring contributions like this is really easy. It's the third biggest line item in the budget, though. It needs some attention. So that jumped out at me. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Jean Cook. I live on Kennedy, Stratford area. I'm trying to learn a lot. I don't come to all your meetings. Most residents don't, but we're all interested. And when social media or emails or conversations in the neighborhood tell us that 42% last year is an increase, followed by this year of 30%, that gets people's attention. And I'd like your help to give a nutshell response. I've been hearing about stormwater for the 21 years I've lived in this residence with my husband. I know it's a need. I know you're addressing it. I know police and fire are essential. We feel we have an A-plus community in most every moment. But when people hear large numbers of percents, even if you say it's only $70 more, it grabs their attention. What would you have me tell neighbors as justification beyond these three: police, fire, stormwater?
But the increase is not 30%. It's 8.4%. So the 30% is just not true. So that's the first thing I would tell people.
Okay.
The total increase is 8.4%. The total increase right now is 8.4%. And again, as we've said, we're trying to bring that number down a little bit before the final budget. That's the preliminary budget. We're adding 3 police officers. We're adding 7 FTEs for fire safety, fire EMS. Those are the increases in the budget. I mean, we're adding, the total general fund increase is $625,000, of which $790 is police. So the other pieces of the budget are coming down, and we're spending $600,000 more in the emergency services budget, of which $500,000 is going to Radnor, Berwyn, and Paoli fire companies, and the other $110,000 is going as part of the spending we're doing for the new fire station on Bridge Avenue. So that's what you're getting. You're getting public safety. That's where all this money is going right now for this year's budget increase. And the 30% is just not true. That's just somebody put it on social media because it gets attention. I'm sorry, what? That's only for that emergency services budget, which is a tiny piece of the budget. It's going up 28%. The general fund budget's going up 6.4%, and the stormwater is going up 0%. So the net increase is 8.4% for your tax.
We have to wonder if this is a trend that will continue. It's not just COLA, is it? It's things that you're working on that are costing more last year, this year.
Well, last year.
Looking ahead, will it continue? Is this the
Your
trend that we
emergency
expect?
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, we could talk about it for a second. I think the emergency services budget is going to continue to go up. I mean, there's a decline in volunteerism for firefighters. And so, as right now, the fire company model is labor is free. And when you take that away and you say now labor costs money, it's a really significant impact. And we have one of our firefighters right here in the audience. It's a huge impact to their operation. And we need, as a township residents, we need to help pay for that.
Yes.
I mean, fighting fires is not a for-profit business. It's not like, they're making money doing this. They're doing this because it's really important for the residents. So that budget, I think, is going to continue to increase over time. It's just not really controllable unless we get more volunteers, which isn't happening. Stormwater, we've spent a lot of time to budget to keep it fairly level for a number of years. So that's a budget we're trying to keep level, and we're trying to manage it with bonds. I think we just talked about this. So we borrowed money. We're using that to execute projects. Steve Burgo has been extraordinary he's our township engineer, in getting grants, successful grant applications. And that's been a huge increase, a huge benefit to the township. So we're getting grant money to help execute a lot of the stormwater projects. So Steve has been extraordinary in getting that done for us. And then the general fund budget is going to continue to increase slowly. I mean, it's like a 3%, 4%, 5% increase every year kind of thing is what we've been doing. We've been trying to keep it level. I think, we're going to hopefully keep it below 6% this year. But that's the nature of the beast, because that's just salary increases and inflation is what happens in the general fund budget.
But to bring it back, I just want to piggyback on what Chairman Miller said. The dollar increase, the 28, 30%, 30, whatever is out there in the ether, that is in the, I call it emergency services.
Yeah.
It's in the emergency services budget. That is about $37 per average household. If you had average taxes, it's about $37. It's in that range. We may be able to tinker with that a little, but not much. The other is about maybe, and I'm just, $35, that's in the general fund. That's $35 per average household. It's higher for higher assessed properties. For lower assessed properties, it's lower. So it's roughly $70 to $75. We're working very hard to reduce that, probably mostly in the general fund. There's been no increase in the stormwater fund. So, I mean, that's just, when you see those percentages thrown around, yes, they are, but the funds are split up. I know that we took them out of general and we split them up. We split them up for a reason, so residents could see where their dedicated funds are going for emergency services. They're going for stormwater. And we have the general fund, which we need for police and others in general township work. So those are the real numbers. Those are the real numbers. So.
For the information.
Hi, my name is Mike Trobich, Trobich. I'm a resident of Chesterbrook. Long-time resident, 24 years. Taxpayer, don't like paying taxes. The thing that brings me here is that I'm usually on the other side of that window there, okay? And I do that as, public service, but it kind of gets to me when people come up to this microphone and say, we didn't know that this was going to happen. These meetings are telecast, okay? They're online. You don't want to go to social media and say, oh, my taxes are going up 30%. If you are responsible for your budget and your wallet, watch these meetings. It's not scintillating television, But if you're going to be a taxpayer, if you're going to be an informed citizen, take advantage of the information that's there, okay? And try to form, I've been watching these for, like I say, for about 20 years. The stormwater hearings, you know, the amount of damage that people have gone and that you have tried to fix with this stormwater tax thing, you just need to know. I know the young man is only here 2 years, but you need to know what's going on in the township before, you know, you come and say, oh, my taxes are, you know, what's causing that? So I'm sorry to take up so much time, but I just wanted to say that, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other citizen comment? Any board comment?
Yep, we have. There is a, oh, go ahead. We have another
sure.
one virtual as well.
Oh, there's a virtual comment too, okay.
Hi, everybody. I am Eileen Lacey. Eileen Lacey. EILYN. Thank you. EILYN. LACY is the last name. LACY, Lacey. Okay. I live in Glen Hardy Road in Wayne. And I just want to say that we as citizens may not have enough time to get into all the documents, but it's okay that we as citizens come and express our concern. And nobody should be scolded for saying what they are concerned about. And there are some people that may be able to afford the increase every year. It doesn't seem to be a lot. From now I understand that it is about $80 a year per household. But I didn't understand that clearly. I don't have the time to go through all those documents. And I just want to say that everybody should be treated with respect when we get here and ask a question about this. Okay? And the expression should be respectful to everybody that stands up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? We have an online comment? No?
The hand was up, but it's not anymore.
Okay, any other comments?
Oh, it's back up.
Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Good. First of all, I listened very closely to Michael Heberg, and he might be a bit surprised that after years of arguing with him over real estate matters, I do agree with some of the things he said concerning the budget, his budget concerns. Each one of you, several of you, Dr. Gassi, David Miller, Supervisor Basker, I believe all operate businesses. You are leaders in your personal businesses. I wonder if you are able, if when you calculate your annual budgets, if you find yourself calculating rate increases in your services of the magnitude that people are complaining about regarding the township budget. Now, I know it's very popular. It's popular culture to say, oh, I hate paying taxes. But you know what? I don't like to pay my grocery bill, but I get pretty hungry at the end of the day if I didn't get anything in the house from the ACME. So I pay my grocery bill. We have to remember that we do need to pay for the services that we get. However, if the service provider finds himself short of staff, as Mr. Heberg alluded to in the township, and there are no salaries being paid for positions that are open, it does seem a bit reasonable to calculate that saving into the coming budget, depending on whether or not the position is filled during the course of the present budget. I wonder if all of the supervisors think about, I'm sure, well, do I need to wonder? I'm sure you do. I'm sure all of the supervisors maintain and manage household budgets as well as the budget for the township, just as some of them manage budgets for their personal businesses. I really wonder if you just go ahead and budget an extra amount next year for next year's food budget because you expect prices to go up. Well, I don't. I just calculate what I spend each year and divide it by 12, and I put that amount of money away each month for the next month, so I can go to the supermarket. It just seems reasonable that you would think of the township budget in the same terms as you think about your business budget and your household budget. And I'm not sure that I see that. I'm sure perhaps you do, but it isn't showing because you are spending a lot of time justifying the increase in the township tax budget. And as far as well, I won't say that, but I guess that's about it. So far as Mr. Trowbridge's comments are concerned, I think he's absolutely right. If people are concerned, they can't come into the board meeting shocked and dismayed at what is going on. They do need to be informed before the fact, and we have discussed that kind of thing in the past regarding the change in the Tredyffrin Easttown School District tax collection system, where thousands of people apparently did not know the school district turned the tax collection over to a third-party collection company, not a dunning service, but a collection company, which is a reason, it's not unreasonable, I suppose. But the point is, they didn't read the stuff, and they were dismayed and upset at the idea of being charged for their tax the way they were, thinking it was a dunning notice. So yes, indeed, people do need to be involved, remembering that being a citizen is a full-time job. It takes your whole being to be a citizen. Well, I guess that's about all I have to say. I just wondered if, also, I did want to ask, what is the purpose of the reserve fund? If you, for example, have a position that is vacant for a period of time, just reduce the personnel budget by that amount. Then if you find you need to add that amount of money back, take it from the reserve fund. This is what I do with my budget. If we find we spent too much money on cat food last month, we just take some money from the reserve budget and fill the cash void so we buy cat food for the next month. I guess that's about it. You can disconnect me now. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Any other public comment? With that, we have a roll call. Any board comment? We have a roll call vote to adopt the preliminary budget. Supervisor Humble?
Aye.
Supervisor Holt?
Aye.
Supervisor Gussie?
Aye.
Supervisor Wysocki?
Aye.
Supervisor Bhaskar?
Aye.
Supervisor Johnston Pugh? Supervisor, and I vote aye. The motion carries. That adjourns the public hearing. Let's call to order the public meeting. I have announcements. The 2025 Budget Open House will be held on November 21st at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. here in Keene Hall. In observance of Thanksgiving, township offices will be closed at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, November 27th, and will be closed Thursday and Friday, November 28th and 29th. The Stratford Park Stormwater Project will begin November 18th and will continue into early 2025. The parking lot will remain closed during excavation, but parking will be available in the rear lot at the library. The Bear Road Stormwater Project will begin on and around December 2nd and will continue through the first quarter of 2025. Bear Road between Keller and Mount View will be limited to local traffic during daytime hours. Now we have the approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any comments from the board? Comments from the public? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Township business. The board met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss personnel matters. Supervisor liaison reports. Supervisor Humble.
Thank you. The Parks and Recreation Board did not meet this November. However, I do have a few announcements. The Parks and Recreation Board had its first trunk or treat event at Wilson Farm Park on Sunday, October 27th. There were 22 trunks signed up, and while we don't have a formal number of how many children attended, I would say it was between 280 and 300, based on the fact that I did sponsor a trunk and handed out books to the kids, and I had 280 books, and all of them got handed out. It was a very successful event, so I hope we will do it again next year. On Saturday, December the 7th at 5 p.m. at Wilson Farm Park will be the Township's tree lighting event. Everybody is welcome to attend. It's a free event. There's Santa Claus comes and the trees get lit and the other decorations as well, and it's a pretty fun event. So we would recommend anybody to come and attend. The Winter Recreation Program is now open for registration. This is the program that's held annually at Valley Forge Elementary School for children ages kindergarten through 6th grade. Registration is $25 per child if you're a resident of Tredyffrin. If you're not a resident of Tredyffrin, it's $36 per child. And each Saturday goes from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. where parents can drop off their kids to play with various kinds of events, and they can go do their shopping or whatever else they need to do. Both my kids did it their whole elementary years and loved it. So that concludes my remarks for today. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Holt.
The Historical Commission met last Thursday, and the team is engaged in a lot of excellent planning for 2025. Thank you.
Supervisor Gussie.
I do not have a report tonight.
Supervisor Wysocki.
I have one report and two nominations, but let's start with a report. Pension trustees met on November 13th for their quarterly review of the Pension Police Fund, the 457 plan for non-uniformed employees, and the OPEB trust. After examining third quarter and other performance information and future economic and market projections, the trustees concluded that no significant changes in investment strategy were needed. Next meeting of the pension trustees is on February 12, 2025. Moving on to the Planning Commission. I do not have a Planning Commission report, but I have two motions for appointment to the PC. First, I make a motion to appoint Jill Hammond to the Planning Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? I have a comment. The comment is Jill Hammond comes to us from Township, 17 years as a member of the Planning Commission, many of those years as chair of the Planning Commission, and she was also on the Board of Commissioners of Township for several years and was chair for, I believe, one of those years. So she comes to us with lots of good experience. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. David's looking at me.
You got it, man. You can do this.
I mean,
If you want me to do it, I'll do it. But
I'm just, hey. Now I'd like to make a motion to appoint Rob Rose to the Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments?
Sure. So as the liaison to the Library Board of Trustees, I've had the pleasure of working with Rob, who's been on the Library Board of Trustees, and I think as a selectman in Massachusetts, he has served for many years as a selectman, which is, I guess, their equivalent to supervisor in that township, and he is also on the Planning Commission and chaired the Planning Commission there and led some significant redevelopment of the township. So we're glad to have him, and I look forward to voting for him on the Planning Commission.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That was good.
Any other comment?
No other,
Supervisor Bhaskar.
So the Environmental Advisory Council met on Tuesday, October 22nd. So the EAC finalized plans for Krabby Creek tree planting on Saturday, October 26th, and in conjunction with the Valley Creek Restoration Partnership, planning leftover plants from the Rain Garden program in Wilson Farm Park on Sunday, October 27th. So both of those are passed, but I'm just giving a report of the meeting. And there's one more session of maintenance needed before the end of the year, and that's primarily to clean out bird boxes. So the EAC associate member, Tracy Viola, made some videos on recycling plastic bags, and we hope to edit those and get them on the township website shortly. The next meeting of the EAC is on Tuesday, December 3rd, and the EAC members will discuss their goals for 2025, so please do plan to attend and share your thoughts. The Library Board of Trustees met on Thursday, October 24th, and this year we had a different fundraiser. Instead of having golf in a big golf club, they had mini golf in the libraries, 17 or 18 holes in the Stratford Library and 2 holes in the Paoli Library, so it was a lot of fun. I'm still waiting for the amount that was raised, but it looks like everyone who participated had a lot of fun, and I know that for me personally, I had the neighbors' kids decorate the hole in Paoli Library that I sponsored, and the kids had a lot of fun decorating the hole. So, the door count. Moving on, the door count for September was up by 35% for Paoli and 13% for Stratford, so 18% combined. So circulation seems to have stabilized, with e-material circulation stable at around 27 to 28% of the total. Program attendance was down in September, but that was likely a blip because January through August saw strong growth compared to 2023. And the library has started 2 new programs, English language learning programs. There is a weekly conversation group and a twice-weekly skills-based class. As you know, the library got a new makerspace this year that's been very popular, and for many of the classes, there are now actually wait lists. And then the board approved funds for the purchase of a new book drop at Stratford Library, because the problem with the current book drops was when people were driving by and dropping the books, and then it would rain. And I know that people here have kind of forgotten what rain is like. But when it rained, the books would get wet, and that was not good. So they've purchased some funds for looking at buying some new book drops, which are weatherproof. The next meeting of the Library Board of Trustees will take place on Thursday, December 5th at the Stratford Library. Thank you, Chair Biller.
Thank you, Supervisor Bhaskar. Supervisor Johnston Pugh.
I don't have a report, but I do have a motion to reappoint Mr. Dan McLaughlin to the Zoning Hearing Board. I spoke with him last week, and he was very excited about being reappointed. He really likes doing it, and he was very glad that, we asked for him to be reappointed again. So I just would like to make a motion to reappoint him to the Zoning Hearing Board.
Second.
I'll just comment. I've gone to these meetings many times, and Dan is an extraordinary contributor to our zoning hearing board. He does a very good job. So I'm excited to have him reappointed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to all our new appointees. Discussion of the UCC Board of Appeals. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, rest of the board. This is really just a quick discussion item we kind of talked about volunteerism. This would be one of those things that we need volunteers for the board. We're looking for people that are within the building industry, architects, someone that's familiar with the building codes. So this is really just a request for applications for the UCC board members. And they don't meet that often. My understanding, they met once when I first became Director of Planning and Zoning, and I think before that it was 10 years. So this is not a board that meets regularly. It's only if there's a concern with how a code is issued within the township.
How many people are you looking for?
There's 5. So we had one, there's been a couple that have expressed interest in resigning because they're kind of getting out of their practice, architects retiring, so, but right now just one additional is needed.
Thanks. Any comments or questions? No, thank you, Aaron. Now, next, we have a motion to appoint members to the Charter Review Committee. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, members of the board. As you recall, a few meetings ago, we discussed the possibility of setting a Charter Review Committee up to review and possibly update our home rule charter. And we asked for residents to, if they're interested to participate, to send us some information. I'm pleased tonight to make a recommendation to the board for appointment. We have 5 citizens that we're recommending tonight. Mark Freed, Paul Drucker, George Elser, Janet Burton, and Judy DiFilippo. These members have either talked to different supervisors and been involved or sent their resume directly. They will serve on the committee with 3 staff members, Mr. Duraco, Aaron McPherson, and myself, and our solicitor also will serve as our advisor. And through this process, it'll be working on a monthly basis to look at and review this charter in various sections. We'll have public outreach and public meetings and monthly updates at the Board of Supervisors meetings. So with that, I'd ask your support to recommend appointment of these 5 citizens to serve on our Charter Review Committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any board comments or questions? Yeah, we need a motion. I'm sorry. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any board comments or questions?
I just want to say that I think this is needed because when I first got elected, I actually went back and read the charter, and there were things in it that were clearly dated. It did not recognize the fact that we could have video conferences. It did not recognize the fact that newspapers are now hard to find and we can, put stuff on the website and so on. So I think this is much needed.
Well, thank you. And just process-wise, Supervisor Wysocki and Supervisor Johnston-Pugh and I are on the committee, and we reviewed the applicants and selected these members as the people we thought would be best. So that's just in case there's a question how we picked these members. That's how it was done, and we think I think they're going to do a great job. I think we're excited about the applicants we had.
I will add that I personally know some of those members, and they're certainly very well qualified, at least the ones that I know, to review the charter.
Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to authorize capital purchase of a police vehicle. Chief Beatty.
Thank you. Beginning in November this year, we actually received a email correspondence from a vendor that the township has dealt with in the past, advising us that our vehicle was in. We did not place an order for a vehicle, but we were notified of one. Back in 2022, when vehicles were a little scarce to get, Mr. Fitzgerald was doing some research and helped out with us and made contact with New Holland. And as a result of that contact in 2022, they had a vehicle come in last month that was designated for us. This vehicle is a Ford hybrid utility, which we have not been able to get. We've been trying to get on the order list for those. So we're kind of going a step ahead of our 2025 budget, but we have the opportunity to take delivery of this vehicle. The price would be at the 2022 pricing, which is about $9,200 savings over what the quoted hybrid would be now if we even ordered it, trying to see if we could get it in 2025. So we're asking for board approval to make this purchase, and the finance director has worked that he will indicate that will offset in our request, a capital request for 2025, to decrease that, the appropriate amount. So we're looking for board approval. Happy to answer any further questions on this, and I'd like to thank Public Works Director Darren Fitzgerald for his help.
So moved.
Second.
Chief, how much is this truck gonna cost?
Total vehicle cost for the unit itself is $40,363. Comparable price on a vehicle, if we were to place an order today, would be $49,566.
Thank you.
What does the equipment cost? What's the full cost?
By the time you add in the cages, paint, or the striping, consoles and whatnot, you're about just under $10,000 outfit.
It's another 10 grand, just to, when you think about it.
But I'm saying, this is a truck that you went out and ordered or tried to get in 2002, and they're just getting it to you now.
It was a phone inquiry. It wasn't even, we were doing inquiries around to see who
That's what
had
I'm
it.
saying, right?
Yeah, who had it, who wanted it. And we used, actually, it was a phone call. It wasn't anything was signed, and whatever went into their system as a request. And when it showed up on their step, they're like, hey, we got your car, do you want it? We're like, don't let it go.
Okay, so does that mean, Chief, if you want now you might want to put in Darren for the next couple of years, because it's going to take about 3 years to get another one?
We're doing a little better now since 2022. It was definitely hard in 2022. And like I said, this vehicle was on a hybrid. We had a couple hybrids, and they were doing well for us and on the street, and we wanted to go back and get more. And we actually have not been able to get a hybrid since that time. So now we're getting back to them, and we're able to get this vehicle, and we really don't want to take a chance on losing it. And we'll continue to address moving with the board into 2025, the appropriate vehicles, but we'll have a discussion when we get to that point.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to authorize proposal from Axon Enterprises, Inc. for a TASER program starting in 2025. Chief Beatty.
Thank you. We're requesting to sign an agreement ahead of 2025. This is Axon is our TASER provider. TASERs are the less than lethal weapon or instrument that the officers all carry on their duty belts as a less than lethal alternative. Right now we have an X26P, which is an older unit that it's still in service and they work, but we're looking to transition over to the newer technology, which is more accurate and will be covered for years to come. We have negotiated with Axon and have a contract, a 60-month contract. What happens though with our self-defense training is we have to plan the self-defense training and have annual updates. Our annual updates are in May. We need to act upon placing the order early in December, or actually sign this agreement now to get the order in place, to get on their training roster, to get 4 of our instructors included in this price, trained by them. They'll send their instructors out to train 4 of our personnel, and then we can train our department and maintain that training over the next few years, the next 5 years, the cost or the life of this contract. So what we're looking for is it's the lead time. We're trying to get ahead of the lead time, and that's why we're asking tonight for board approval to authorize and sign this agreement, and then none of them funds will be due until 2025. Any other questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Or second? Any board comments or questions?
Okay, Chief, how much?
The total contract is $44,000 per year. The total on the contract is $221,729.39.
And you said it's 44,000 per year?
44,344 per year.
Okay.
And that is for 45 units. What happens with this technology, ma'am, is these are actually issued to each individual officer. Right now we have a cache of them, and when an officer comes on duty, they'll transfer them to each other, where they'll go in and take what they can. And there are times when an officer will not have availability to go grab one because they're all out on the street, because there are times when they're all out and we're short. So this will be the officer's own identified weapon under their care and maintenance, and they'll take care of it. It'll be on their uniform, part of their equipment that they train with and prepare with as a less lethal option.
How long is this contract for?
60 months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And these actually talk to the cameras also?
This, upon either removal from the holster and/or the flip on for the switch, it'll activate with the officer's body cameras automatically. So if the officer's in a high-stress situation where they normally go to hit, make sure the recording starts, this will automatically activate it, because if they don't have time to think one before two, one will trigger two.
I just had, this is for my edification as much as anything, which is that, is there anything that is less lethal? I mean, I realize that a taser is something that is less lethal than a bullet, but is there something that is even less lethal? Like I've heard about firing nets that basically, ensnare a person and therefore they can't move. Is that an option, or you think that doesn't really give you enough control?
I think the benefit of this device that we're looking at now, the new model, is it actually has an effective range of it's 35 or 45 feet, I'm not sure. Accurate, like an accurate shot of 35 to 45 feet from the officer. And that's the benefit of it. Where the X26 has two probes that go out and they go apart. This is more of a shot placement of that device. On the officer's belt, they have other things that they use, and we also, the main thing we do is we train de-escalation. If you don't have to get to that point, you don't want to need to be at that point. But it's just, you have different options on their person. You have their presence, the de-escalation. You have impact weapons, which like a baton that can be used for close. This is something that a lot of times the officers will use on a subject with a knife or something like that when they may want to hurt themselves or somebody else, and they can deploy the taser in a safe and accurate fashion.
Thank you. What I didn't realize was the range. I realized that some of the things that I was talking about, like the things that fire a net, don't go to that range.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Public comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to take items G, H, and I as one group, because these are motions to approve.
Wait, we skipped one. We still have F.
Oh, F, I'm sorry. Oh, a motion to authorize sale of excess vehicles and equipment on municipal bid. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you know, from time to time, we have used equipment in the township that we want to sell. I have a list down here of 6 things. Along with the police, will be probably a bunch of extra light bars and lights that we have to sell. So we put all these up on municipal bid, and we should have the results next month. Just looking for your permission to put it out on
Do I hear a
bid.
motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board? Public comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Sorry about that. Now we're going to do G, H, and I. If it's okay, everyone, I'll do them as one group. These are motions to approve agreements between us and the developer of Lifetime Living. So the first is a motion to approve the assignment and land development agreement. The second is developer agreement and financial security agreement and stormwater O&M agreement. And the third is the motion to approve the sewer line access easement agreement. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was previously on your agenda on November 6th, but the developer wasn't quite ready to execute the agreements that are now in front of you. The developer, all the parties other than Township, have executed those agreements. This was a project that was granted final land development in June of 2023, so the residential aspect of the Lifetime Living project. The developer who received approval has since sold the project, which is why you have the assignment now to the current developer, which is Sweetsford Road Developer, LLC. Sweetsford Road Developer then executed our standard developer agreement, financial security agreement, and stormwater O&M agreement, which is item H. And finally, there's a sewer line access easement agreement between the Township, Sweetsford Road Developer, and the adjacent property owner, of which there are many entities that I don't want to name all right now, because they're sharing some stormwater facilities on the property, and so that way everyone has access to those stormwater facilities. And that is it for those agreements.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any board comments or questions?
Yes, Chair Miller, so I will be voting against these simply because a year ago when this came up, I voted against the project and for various reasons that I won't go into. And I don't see the point of voting in favor to move it along, so I will be voting no.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Nay.
Oh, 2 noes, okay. Motion carries. Now we go to new matters. Any board member new matters?
Yes, I would just like to make a comment, which is that something that happens over and over again is residents come and say that we didn't do a good job of telling them what's going on in the board. And, you know, we go through the process of publicizing things, we go through the process of, you know, the website, social media, you know, and the meetings are all public and the agendas are also published well in advance. I really would like to see I would really like to have the public not feel that they haven't been informed. And so to the extent that they have ideas on what we could do better to communicate, I would really like to hear those, because so far we've heard concerns, but it would be nice to have some solutions as well. So thank you.
Supervisor Bhaskar, I agree with you. I think the one thing we did here was a better summary. I think, like Joe, I think you did a great job explaining, you know, in your board presentation. But I think when they're just looking at the presentation without the words with it, maybe we write a little letter. I don't know. I thought the budget letter was good, though. I don't know. I mean, that's anyway. I think it's a good point, and we'll have to think about it a little bit as we kind of go forward and to see if there's a better way to communicate. I'm sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a reasonable concern. So thank you. Any other board member new matters? Any citizen new matters? The next meeting is December 2nd. Do we hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All say aye, yeah.
Aye.